Hey, friends.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to episode 5 of our series on the Acolyte, because we're talking about episode 5 of the Acolyte.
Yes,
So,
correspond.
yeah,
All right, we're talking about episode 5 of The Acolyte, Night.
night.
Night. Basically, yeah,
It
yeah,
picks up right where episode 4, day,
day,
left off.
which is good.
And we open in Osha's point of view. And
Yeah, we
she,
open as we will
so,
close this episode with her passed out.
yeah. So she got knocked out by the mysterious dark side user with a red lightsaber.
Yes.
At the end of the last episode, we pick up with her waking up, and she immediately sees a dead Jedi.
Pretty immediately.
One of this crew of Jedi who had come with her
One
to.
of the, as many are calling him, the first red shirt Jedi.
Yeah.
Which
And oh boy, did we have a lot of red shirt Jedis in this episode.
Yeah, a lot of red shirts, which is just really speaking to the fact that these Jedi are not combat ready in any sense.
Yeah, I think we're used to seeing Jedi in the context of like the Clone Wars and
who are a different kind of combat ready.
Yeah, but like they're seasoned, they're veterans.
Yeah,
and they know how to fight. They've been training to fight.
But those Jedi also don't know how to fight other Force users.
Yeah, that's true, because they haven't really had to.
As we're seeing in this episode.
Yeah.
Nobody, two, maybe three of our band of Jedi actually were very good at what they were doing, which is really interesting.
They seemed like entirely unprepared for.
My favorite is in the beginning when they're fighting. We just see lightsabers in the dark, and there's the red lightsaber interacting with two, and then there's two over here that are just like, like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, there were some really awesome action moments.
Oh my goodness.
Fight choreography was outstanding.
It was amazing. I found out that the person who did the fight choreography, at least for this episode, is the same person who is responsible for a lot of the fight choreography in Shang-Chi. So I'm like, it's the bus scene with lightsabers. Like, this was Shang-Chi. Whoa, who almost had a spit take. Yeah. Yeah, this was Shang-Chi with lightsabers. And it was amazing. Like, very good. I appreciated, I know some people don't appreciate this, but I appreciated the very prequels trilogy pacing of being mid-fight scene, and then we have a diagonal wipe to people walking. Like, that is, to me, quintessential Star Wars. Like, meanwhile, here we go,
Yeah.
So it definitely had that, like, that choppy feeling that the prequels definitely
and
have.
it gives you like a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a change of pace in the middle of all the action.
Because that would be relentless.
Which I think just helps to space it out and make it feel more impactful when we see the action. So
if you want more action, go watch The Boys. Sorry.
Only if you're fine with an incredible amount of gore.
I can't. So.
Yeah. It's almost too much for me. Usually is too much for me. Anyway, we're not talking about that.
Oh, sorry. Derailed.
Yeah, just like the action scenes were so good. I thought there was like a level of viciousness that we haven't really seen from Sith before.
Yeah, he was vicious, almost
some of the like
scrappy.
But like some of the moments where he has one Jedi impaled on his lightsaber, and then he force pulls another one into the blade sticking out the end. Like that was just
kebab?
Brutal. Sith kebab.
Has ever heard it called?
That was just absolute brutality, which is what you would expect from a dark side user.
Yes.
And the fact that he was using, I don't remember what it's called. Sorry, Legends fans, I wasn't that deep into it, but he was using like ancient Sith technology to disrupt their lightsabers.
Oh, kurtosis?
I think that's what it was.
Something like that. Yeah.
And
I looked it up.
The fact that like he was doing that, but then still fighting, and like when he did that to Soul, and Soul was like, "All right, I'm just gonna start throwing punches at you."
Oh my gosh! When Soul went in on him, I was like, "Well, they don't teach this at the temple. Soul has more explaining to do."
Yeah.
I also thought it very, very interesting that the Jedi who were able to keep pace with him the most were Soul and Soul's Padawan, Jeki.
Yeah.
Which means he's taught her to be ferocious, because she was ferocious, and very good, like in ways that like even Yord wasn't quite until he like until Osha kind of prodded him.
Yeah.
You know, so that was very interesting.
Yeah.
To me, I thought that was fun.
And just, man, the way that they just like took out these Jedi one by one, who they had put some time and effort into developing their characters, was like, again, just raising the stakes and showing the absolute brutality of the dark side.
Yeah.
I mean, the way Yord got
Gives
like
no
General Zodded.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
Jackie just got like
she just
triple stabbed. Like, oh man, like that hurt to watch.
It was so. And again, the fight choreography was so good because we had these two moments of like, oh man, right after two moments of high. So like the moments of high of Jackie with the two lightsabers, and we were like, yeah, Jackie, and she's amazing. And then he pulls out the second saber, and we're like, there's two, and then he uses that to kill her. Like that, like yes, no, like just the buildup was perfectly timed so that it wasn't like we were still kind of riding the high and we didn't get too depressed, and it didn't like slow the momentum of the story down. And same thing with Yord, like it didn't slow the story down, which can sometimes happen in a character death, especially a character who's been developed and that you care about.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated that the fight choreography really helped tell the story in ways that sometimes in the show the dialogue hasn't helped tell the story. So I do want to say about the dialogue in this episode, particularly in the scene which happens after all the fighting between Osha and May, which this confrontation scene has been is overdue. Let's just get out there. It's overdue. And I really liked the effect of the two together, and it seamlessly goes to one and to the other. It was very good. The May is her character is being conveyed a lot better, but we're still missing a few things on their characters. But I'm getting to the dialogue. I don't know. The dialogue that May says to try to convince Osha to not go back to the Jedi are all phrases that Anakin says to Padme. Every single one are all arguments and phrases that Anakin says to Padme, which is so interesting because in this context, they are positive arguments. Like they are arguments that are supposed to be convincing us, the audience, and her, and and all of that. And in the context of Anakin and Padme, we, the audience, are like, no,
don't listen to him. We know what happens to you.
Like, and not even that, like the way he says it and the context in which he's saying it in, it's like he's very angry, and she's like they're. It's just a very different context. It's very heated and very like it's already too late kind of thing. Whereas with Osha and May, it's not too late yet. And it's not a super highly charged moment. It's a very actually calm moment. And so these phrases, even though they are the same, it's the same argument that Anakin makes to Padme that May is making to Osha. Like it is actually convincing because of the context and because of everything that's going on, which is really, really interesting. It's also convincing because we don't know these characters' motivations very well.
Yeah.
Which is a little...
Yeah, I think that is one valid criticism of the series, is that we're at 5 out of 8 episodes now, and we still don't really understand what makes these characters tick. And that's something that could definitely be improved on. Maybe there's like some more big reveals coming that we're going to find out more about their backstory and why they've ended up where they are.
That's kind of what is being inferred. Like that's definitely being inferred. And it's not hindering from my enjoyment of everything else.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely not ruining it for me. It's just kind of like, well, now what?
Like they've been teasing this, like whatever Soul is going to reveal.
Yeah.
That's going to have a huge impact, I think, on like why May has followed the path that she has and why Osha has followed the path that she has.
Yeah.
And I guess there weren't a lot of like major plot points in this episode. It was very action packed. But one, so a couple of them. One is the reveal that Kamir is in fact the,
which was it was not
bad guy. He doesn't call himself a Sith.
No.
The wording he used was like a Jedi like you might call me a Sith.
Yes.
So he doesn't necessarily consider himself a Sith, which I think
not according to what he said
kind of helps massage the canon a little bit to fit this in without trying to ruffle too many feathers. I know a lot of people are still upset.
They're already upset. But I feel like people are upset before.
I think the people who are mad about that are probably not going to be convinced by anything that we say or anything the show does at this
probably
point.
Probably not at this point.
Sorry. Not sorry.
Just let them tell a story!
Yeah. But I think there also is room for him to be a Sith Lord. Like, we don't have a canon, like, exact timeline of who was within the Sith at which point.
That's about it.
Yeah. And another point that was made is, like, we have one line of Sith. It's possible that there's another line.
Yeah.
You know?
It is.
And one way that you could read Yoda's explanation of the rule of two is not that there's only ever going to be two, but that if you find one, there will be another.
There will be another.
You know?
Which is, it's like, yeah.
So, and I mean, one thing that we've already talked about this, but like we constantly see throughout the Clone Wars, like Count Dooku is trying to get an apprentice with maybe the goal of overthrowing Palpatine. Yeah. We see this in the original trilogy. Darth Vader is trying to recruit Luke to be his apprentice so that they can overthrow the Empire.
Together.
This is how it works for the Sith. This is business as usual. Yeah. So being hard and fast about, like, no, there's only ever two, and neither one is going to betray the other. That's just not how they work within the canon.
Even in Legends, that isn't the case. Like, that's how the Sith work. They break rules.
Yeah.
And they backstab. Like,
so
that's just...
all of that is to say, like, I think there's definitely room for Kamir and, like, whatever his title or evil name is. I'm sure we will find that out in the rest of the series.
I think so too.
I think he's just a really good villain, honestly. Like the helmet is a little goofy.
Oh, I like the helmet.
But I think it fits the character.
It's like the Star Wars version of Joker.
Yeah.
I really like it.
I think it fits the character. The way that he, like, entered with that helmet on was unbelievably
spooky. His floating abilities are ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think it fits. And
Manny Jacinto is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like,
he was one of the, like, having a good villain. He was one of the highlights of the episode. Yeah. And of the series so far, I think.
For sure. I agree.
Yeah. And then the other major plot point is the twin swap.
They parent trapped.
Yeah, they parent trapped themselves.
Well,
May parent trapped themselves.
Yeah.
So, out, yeah, at the end of the episode, like, she knocks out Osha and then cuts her hair with her lightsaber, which is a really cool, like, the choreography on that was really, really cool.
I agree.
And then,
I mean, it's Mulan.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
And I think we both picked up on it, like, immediately when she goes and meets up with Soul. They're like, that's not Osha. That's Soul. That's not Osha.
Soul. And I really love that the actor playing Soul, I don't know his name, apologies, that he is playing in that moment as someone very dazed and confused, very upset. He is not thinking clearly. He is not even trying to, read minds or anything like that. Like, he is just surviving. He's in survival mode at this moment, and he's just glad he sees who he thinks is Osha, like, and he's just glad she's alive because he just watched his other friends and people he cared about and who were under him, who he was kind of taking care of and raising Jackie in a lot of ways. Like, he just saw Jackie and Yord die. Yeah. And that's just to see somebody survive. Like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, thank goodness. Like, just, he's super, super rattled. And I think he's conveying that really, really well. Yeah. So I think the actors are acting their butts off and they are doing a fantastic job. As usual in Star Wars, the actors are doing so well with what they are given. Like, so well. Yeah. It's so great. So that's really good. The final bit with Kamir and, kind of talking to pass out Osha and, like, covering her up. I am very interested to see, because this whole story has been about perspectives. Yeah. And that, I think, is part of why we aren't really clear on what everyone's motivations are, is because we keep changing everyone's perspective. That is the point of the show. That is the theme. That is what they're trying to convey. Great. They're doing a great job. We're all very confused. So, so on that, I'm really interested to see whose perspective we're going into next, because we're
Hmm.
not together anymore. For most of this story, everyone's been in the same place,
Yeah.
or at least trying to get to the same place. So now we are purposefully separated. And I'm really interested to see how that's going to work, because it was confusing in the first episode, and I don't, but now we know there are two people, and
Yeah.
we're not pulling that joke anymore. So going forward, and there's speculation that we're going to see the flashback of them as girls and see that through someone else's perspective. Soul said he'd explain when he gets back to the ship. He is back on the ship. He has much explaining to do. Sir, you learned English for this role. It is time for you to monologue in English. We appreciate your hard work in learning our difficult language. Please explain.
Yeah.
We are ready. Yeah. Also, Basil's going to save the day. That is, like, he knows.
Yeah.
What's going on. So, yeah.
Overall, I loved this episode. I thought it was so good.
It was very good.
It was satisfying.
Yes. I was satisfied.
Yeah.
It was very satisfying. I think the fight choreography kind of, if this episode had as much walking as in the last episode, I don't think I'd be very satisfied.
No.
But because of this kick butt fight choreography, like, honestly, if the last episode had just as much fighting instead of walking, it would have been way more interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it just is. It's more interesting for characters actually doing things.
Yeah, I mean, these are these are Jedi Knights.
Yes.
You know?
These are
like,
Jedi Knights.
We need to see them in action.
Yes.
Or they're just not that interesting.
They're not. So that was a plus for this episode, is the choreography and the acting, and just everyone just watching the actors and the stuntmen and just everybody do their thing was super fun. Yeah, and it did leave us wondering what's next, which I think is the most important thing for a TV show to do, is to leave you wondering what's next. Because you got to watch the next episode. That's how it works.
Yeah, without it being like cliffhangery. Like it didn't feel like a cliffhanger in the way that the previous week's episode did.
Ugh, in a not great way.
Because it felt like, like this episode made some promises about what was going to happen, and then it fulfilled those promises and left you wanting just a little bit more.
Just wanting more. And it left you wanting more of the grand arc of things, not those are the cliffhangers that are better, is when it's the cliffhanger about the grand arc rather than the immediate of like, darn it. I think Brandon Sanderson gives a good example of, he opened the door and that's a bad cliffhanger. He opened the door and his dad was there, who he hasn't seen in 10 years. Then you end it. Like, that's a better cliffhanger.
That's a better cliffhanger.
And that's what this episode did.
Yeah, for sure.
And last episode was, he opened the door and that's not as good. It's fine. It's just not as good.
I would argue it's not fine, but we can have that discussion in a podcast one of these days, maybe.
Ooh, yeah. Podcast about cliffhangers and endings. Right. So we will see you in less than a week, hopefully. Hopefully we'll get this out sooner than this week. It's been...
Yeah, sorry. We've had a little bit of a crazy week. I had some crazy work stuff this week, but things are going to be a little bit more normal next week. We made it. And we made it, and we're here.
But hey, less time until the next episode.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
If you made it this far in the video, give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps us out. It really keeps us motivated to keep doing this.
Yay.
We really appreciate you all. Everyone who's given us positive feedback and encouragement. And I hope to see you all again.
Bye.
Bye.